Did you ever notice how the scariest losses don't announce themselves, they whisper? What if the woman you think loves you never actually did, or worse, what if she stopped, quietly, while you were still trying harder? Ask yourself this before you blink: if love were a language, would her silence be the loudest sentence in the room? Because here's the uncomfortable truth most men avoid: love doesn't usually die in explosions, it fades in moments you were too busy justifying. And if that sentence stings a little, good. It means this story might be about you. At first, nothing feels wrong enough to panic. That's how it traps you. She still replies, still shows up, still says the right words when necessary. But something essential is missing, like a song playing without bass. You can hear it, but you don't feel it in your chest anymore. Psychology calls this emotional disengagement, but lived experience feels more personal, more brutal. It feels like talking and realizing you're not being heard, like touching someone and sensing their mind is somewhere else. And the terrifying question starts forming quietly in the background: when did I become optional? You tell yourself it's stress, timing, her mood, but deep down, you feel a shift you can't name yet. Stay with that feeling, because it's pointing to something most people realize too late. Here's where fear enters the room. When a woman is in love, her attention flows naturally, effortlessly, like gravity pulling toward a center. When she's not, attention becomes calculated. Notice how conversations shrink. Not arguments, those still mean emotion, but the neutral space in between. The long pauses. The yeah, okay. Psychology tells us that emotional investment predicts conversational depth, but the human version is simpler: she doesn't reach for you mentally anymore. And here's the hook you're not ready for yet: people don't stop talking because they're tired, they stop because they no longer feel the need to be understood by you. Let that sit for a second. Time reveals what words try to hide. Watch how time is allocated. Not promised, allocated. Love reorganizes priorities without needing reminders. When she loves you, she bends her schedule; when she doesn't, you're fitted into the leftovers. And no, it's not about being busy. Everyone is busy. Psychology shows that emotional value determines prioritization under constraint. Translation: we make time for what emotionally feeds us. If you constantly feel like you're negotiating for presence, you're already standing on shaky ground. But here's the loop: what if she still shows up just enough to keep you hopeful? That's where confusion becomes its own prison. Now comes the part most people misunderstand: physical distance isn't about sex. It's about safety. Affection is a signal of emotional comfort, not obligation. When love is present, touch happens unconsciously: a hand reaches, a shoulder leans, a body stays close even in silence. When love fades, touch becomes intentional, measured, sometimes avoided altogether. Psychology explains this as reduced oxytocin-driven bonding behavior, but emotionally it feels colder, sharper. You start wondering if you're asking for too much when you're really just noticing what's gone. And the dangerous thought creeps in: maybe if I change, if I do more, if I become better, she'll come back. Hold on to that thought. We're not done with it yet. Something subtle but devastating happens next. Your inner world stops mattering to her. Your wins don't light her up. Your struggles don't pull her closer. She listens, but without curiosity. Responds, but without weight. This isn't cruelty, it's indifference, and indifference is psychologically louder than anger. Anger means emotional charge. Indifference means emotional exit. When someone loves you, your emotional state affects theirs. When they don't, it becomes background noise. And here's the hard question: when was the last time she asked about you without being prompted? That answer is heavier than it seems. The future is where love leaves fingerprints. When a woman is emotionally bonded, she naturally imagines ahead, with you in the picture. Not in dramatic speeches, but in assumptions. When that stops, the future becomes vague, individual, or avoided altogether. Psychology frames this as reduced shared identity formation, but emotionally it feels like standing next to someone who's already walking a different road. You might still be together in the present, but she's alone in her tomorrow. And here's the unsettling loop: people can stay physically while leaving psychologically. That's why breakups often feel shocking even when the signs were everywhere. Irritation replaces warmth in small doses at first. Little things you do suddenly feel too much. Your presence feels heavier. Your voice slightly annoying. This isn't about your flaws, it's about emotional misalignment. When love is present, flaws are contextualized. When it's gone, they're magnified. Psychology calls this negative sentiment override, where the brain filters neutral behavior as irritating once emotional safety erodes. The emotional experience, though, feels personal. You start shrinking yourself, editing your personality, hoping to return to a version of you she liked more. And here's the quiet tragedy: love doesn't grow back through self-erasure. Conflict changes shape when love disappears. It's no longer about solving, it's about ending the conversation. She doesn't fight because fighting requires investment. She withdraws, disengages, shuts down. You feel like you're arguing with a wall. Psychology tells us that avoidance increases when emotional return feels low. Translation: she doesn't see the relationship as worth repairing. And here's the painful realization: when someone stops trying to understand you, they've already decided something internally. The question is, have you? This is the emotional peak, and it's not comfortable. Sometimes she still says, "I love you." Not as a lie, but as a habit. Words can lag behind feelings. Actions rarely do. Love is behavioral consistency, not verbal reassurance. If her actions no longer protect the bond, nurture closeness, or prioritize connection, the words become echoes from an older version of the relationship. And here's the bitter truth most people resist: loving someone who doesn't love you back turns self-respect into a daily negotiation. That realization hurts because it forces a mirror in front of you. Now let's flip the lens inward, because this isn't just about her. Psychology shows that people often stay in unloved dynamics because uncertainty feels safer than finality. You hold on to ambiguity because it allows hope. But hope without evidence becomes self-betrayal. Ask yourself this, not with fear, but honesty: are you staying because of love, or because letting go would force you to confront your own worth? That question doesn't accuse. It invites awareness. Here's the reframe that changes everything. Signs she doesn't love you aren't punishments. They're information. They're signals calling you back to yourself. Love isn't something you earn by enduring emotional starvation. It's something that meets you in presence, effort, and reciprocity. And when it doesn't, the most psychologically healthy move isn't to chase, it's to observe, accept, and choose yourself without bitterness. That's not weakness. That's emotional maturity. As the story comes full circle, remember this: real love doesn't make you feel confused about where you stand. It doesn't make you question your value in quiet moments. It doesn't require constant interpretation. And if you felt a knot in your chest while listening to this, that knot isn't fear, it's clarity knocking. What you do with that clarity is where your next chapter begins. Because the moment clarity arrives, something inside you resists it. Not because it's wrong, but because it threatens a version of you that survived on hope. You tell yourself, maybe this phase will pass, maybe she just needs time, maybe love comes back if I'm patient enough. Psychology calls this intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism that keeps people addicted to things that hurt them just enough to keep them chasing relief. Emotionally, it feels like standing in a hallway with a door half open, convincing yourself it's better than being locked out. But here's the question that should stop you cold. How long can you wait in a hallway before you forget what room you came from? There's a moment most people don't talk about, the moment you start performing instead of being. You become careful, calculated, hyper-aware of every word, every reaction, every silence. You stop expressing and start managing. Psychology explains this as anxious attachment activating under emotional uncertainty, but lived experience feels like walking on glass, terrified that one wrong step will finally make her leave. And here's the cruel irony: authentic connection can't survive performance. The more you try to hold her by shrinking yourself, the more invisible you become. And invisibility is not love's opposite, it's its absence. Notice how your intuition has been trying to talk to you all along. Not in loud alarms, but in small aches. The way your chest tightens when her name pops up on your phone. The way relief outweighs joy when she finally responds. The way you replay conversations in your head, searching for meaning between her words. Psychology tells us intuition is subconscious pattern recognition. Translation: your mind already knows what your heart is afraid to accept. The curiosity isn't whether she loves you. The real question is why you've been asking instead of listening. Let's talk about the stories we tell ourselves. She's not expressive. She's been hurt before. She just needs space. Sometimes these are true. Often, they're shields, ways to avoid confronting rejection without calling it rejection. Because rejection feels final, and final feels terrifying. But here's the emotional twist: being slowly unloved is often more damaging than being clearly left. One wounds your pride. The other erodes your identity. Ask yourself which one you've been surviving. There's a psychological concept called emotional availability, and it's brutally simple. People who are emotionally available move toward connection when tension arises. People who aren't move away. They don't lean in, they retreat. If every difficult moment pushes her further from you, that's not a communication problem. That's an availability problem. And no amount of patience can turn emotional absence into presence. That realization hurts because it means effort isn't the missing ingredient. Alignment is. Now here's the part that feels sharp but freeing. Her not loving you is not proof that you are unlovable. It's proof that compatibility is more than chemistry, history, or hope. Psychology reminds us that attraction doesn't equal attachment, and attachment doesn't guarantee longevity. Sometimes people stay because it's familiar, not because it's fulfilling. And sometimes they leave emotionally long before they leave physically. The shock isn't that it happens. The shock is how long we ignore it. Watch how your body reacts when you imagine letting go. Fear, yes, but also relief. That relief is important. It's your nervous system recognizing the end of a prolonged threat. Love that requires constant vigilance isn't love, it's survival mode disguised as romance. And survival mode can't build intimacy. It only builds endurance. Ask yourself this: do you want a relationship that challenges you to grow, or one that teaches you how much pain you can tolerate? Here's the self-improvement angle most videos never go deep enough into. The work isn't becoming better so she stays. The work is becoming grounded enough that you don't abandon yourself when someone else does. Psychology shows that self-respect is built through boundary enforcement, not validation chasing. The moment you stop begging for clarity and start responding to patterns, your power quietly returns. And that power is magnetic, not because it manipulates, but because it's honest. Imagine this future version of you, 6 months from now, looking back at this moment. He's calmer, clearer, less reactive. He doesn't scan messages for meaning. He doesn't wonder where he stands. He chooses connections that choose him back. The difference between him and you isn't luck. It's the decision to stop negotiating with uncertainty. And here's the final curiosity loop. What if the pain you're avoiding is actually the doorway to peace? Because love, real love, doesn't leave you guessing in the dark. It doesn't require you to decode silence or overanalyze tone. It feels steady, not dramatic. Secure, not addictive. And once you've tasted that kind of connection, you'll realize something quietly devastating and liberating at the same time. What you were holding onto before wasn't love. It was the fear of being alone. And when that realization lands, not as bitterness but as clarity, something shifts. You stop asking why she doesn't love you, and start asking why you stayed when you weren't. That question doesn't shame you. It wakes you up. And waking up is always the first step toward something real.